Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to be making a delicious lamb and leek lasagna. Now, there's a few steps involved, but it's pretty simple. Just follow along and I'll show you how to make it. So, basically in front of me, I've got a lamb shoulder cut up. I'm going to slow cook this. So I've cut this into large chunks and I'm just going to brown it a little bit before taking it out, sauteing my vegetables until they're soft, putting it all back in together and putting it in the oven. So after that, I'm going to slow cook it for a few hours. Then I'm going to make a delicious leek bechamel, or simple bechamel sauce, which, trust me, the leek just takes it to another level and makes the lasagna absolutely delicious. So in this recipe, I'm going to slow cook the lamb, considering it's a lamb shoulder, but feel free to use lamb mince, and that'll be much quicker. So I've cut my lamb here, leaving most of the fat on, and I'm just going to brown it in the pan. So what I plan to do is, by leaving it in large chunks like this, I will slowly cook it and the fat will make the lamb nice and moist, and then when it comes out of the oven all nicely cooked, I'll pull it apart and shred it into little nice pieces, and in that process I will remove all the fat. But keeping the fat on the meat like this will make sure that it's really nice and juicy, nice and tender, and trust me, it'll be amazing. But I do agree, it is very fatty, so that's why I'll take it all out at the end. So now that my lamb is browning, I'm going to come over here. I've got my carrots, my onion, celery, and garlic, and I'm just going to throw it right here into my trusty food processor. So again, this is a lasagna. We're not focusing on, nicely cut veggies. We want just a nice, not a mush, but we want a nicely finely chopped vegetable that is sauteed and kind of just blends into the background. But this triage of vegetables and the garlic will give us nice sweet flavors. I've also got some zucchini here as well, as I like to add some extra vegetables, but if you want, you could add some mushrooms, really anything that you want to add. I just want to keep it nice and small as to not agitate the fine layers of the lasagna. So there we go, nice and easy. So as you saw, that only took probably 20 seconds to blitz around with a few pulses with my food processor, much quicker and a much finer cut than actually cutting it by hand. So that's all in, nice and easy. I've taken the lamb out, it's rendered down. Remember, color equals flavor, and a really important point. So the lamb's out, the veggies are into saute. I haven't done my zucchini yet, because that's very mushy and liquidy. I'm going to blitz that separately, but I'm just going to wait until the onion, garlic, celery and carrot have softened. I don't want to saute, I don't want them to caramelize. I just want them nice and translucent and soft, and they'll cook down really nicely in that rendered down lamb fat that was left over in that pan. So my veggies are sauteing down nicely. I've added a little bit of pepper and salt, and now I've got some dried herbs in front of me that I'd like to add. So I've got some crushed chili, some dried oregano, thyme, and rosemary. So they're about half a teaspoon of each. I also have the dark spice here is some ground cloves. This also adds a delicious, almost kind of a meaty flavor, and I really recommend putting it in. So generally the way it goes with dried spices, you want to add them in a little bit earlier, as the flavor takes longer to come out of them, whereas fresh herbs, it's often good to add them later on, such as basil. So now that's all becoming nice and soft, I'm going to head on. So I'm going to put in a squeeze of tomato paste. I'm going to put in a little bit, or maybe only 2 anchovies. So again, these, as I've talked about in my last lamb ragu video, it really helps to bring out the flavour in the lamb, and it really just goes nicely and creates a delicious umami flavour. And again, you can't taste the anchovies, but it adds a really nice depth of flavour. I'm also going to pour in about half a cup of red wine. You can also use white wine, or you could use a few tablespoons of red wine vinegar, or whatever you really have around. This is just going to deglaze the pan, and after this I'm going to put in 1 tin of crushed tomatoes, and also a jar of passata. And also, I can't forget, if you can add any other vegetables, now's that time to add them. So I'm going to blitz up my zucchinis and add those in too. So now that I have everything in there and it's all kind of nicely marrying away in the pot, I'm going to add this into the oven. So my oven is heated to 150 degrees Celsius. And I'm going to cook this for about 2.5 hours, and it's really going to cook until that lamb is nice and soft and until I can easily pull it apart. So there we go, that was really nice and quick and easy just to get that sauce going. Go around and do something else, and I'll see you guys back a bit later. Alright, so I'm back. The lamb's been cooking for a few hours, the kitchen's a bit cleaner, I've got a glass of wine, so let's move on to the leek bechamel. Now this is really, really simple and it's absolutely delicious. But the most important thing to remember is here with this leek is that you've got to wash it. So I'm just going to cut it down the center like this. And as you can see, it's kind of like a filter. It's full of this dirt all between the folds. So I'm just going to cut that properly. Oh, it's not much better. So I'm just going to rinse this under the sink because if you don't get this dirt out, it's going to taste gritty and disgusting. Alright, here we go. So my leek's now nicely washed. I'm just going to cut this up into little pieces. And basically what I'm going to do, it's very similar to just a normal bechamel sauce. I'm going to melt some butter on the stove and I'm going to slowly saute or just soften these leeks in my pot. And once they're softened, I'm going to add in about half a cup of flour. Make sure that's all mixed in well. There's no lumps left. And then I'm going to add some milk in. Now I just have some skim milk, as you can see on the bench over here. That's just what I have, but you can usually use full cream milk, but it should still be fine. So I'm just going to saute these down, saute this down with the butter, pop that flour in, and then once that flour is completely dissolved and mixed together, I am going to put that milk in slowly and whisk it until it creates this thick, lovely sauce. Alright, so I've added my flour in the milk and it's looking delicious. It's all nice and thick and velvety, and I'm now just going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. And you can add some nutmeg if you want to, kind of keeping the traditional way of making it. But that leek in there is just delicious. The smell, it's really soft and just a light kind of very, very mild onion taste. It is delicious. If you want to as well, you can grate some cheese, and in here I might put some parmesan, or if I'm lazy, I like to just put a little bit of just shredded cheese from the supermarket. But yeah, that's about it. And also if you want to as well, it's another step, but you can grab a stick blender and blend this up into a nice smooth puree. I quite like the rustic, as I like to say, the rustic look, and I like to keep the leeks just kind of chopped as they are, and it creates quite a nice bit of like little, I guess, texture and variety in between the layers of the lasagna later when you, I guess, cut into it and eat it. Again, completely up to you. Alright, so it's been about 2.5 hours and my lamb is delicious. The house smells amazing, and I've just pulled it out of the oven, let it cool down a bit, and basically it's as easy as grabbing out those bits of lamb, and you know it's ready when it's literally falling apart, and you can pull, as I said, those little bits of fat off. And I want to keep the meat, and I want to keep this nice and shredded, and you can do it with 2 forks. You can do whatever you want. I sometimes find it's easy just to grab it with your hands and pull it apart, and that's when you can pull that fat off. We can put it back into the sauce, and while you're doing all this, it's good to taste that sauce, because even though I've added all those vegetables at the start which have the natural sugar in there, that tomato paste and the canned tomatoes, all that, it really can add some bitter flavour. So it's good to check the seasoning, so salt and pepper. And also it could be a good time to add about a teaspoon of sugar if the sauce needs it. So from here, it is time to start assembly. So in front of me I have my lamb ragu, basically. I have some instant lasagna sheets. Now, these are amazing. They're really nice and easy. You don't have to cook them. This makes it really fast, nice and easy. You just basically layer it. And I have this glass dish, which I find very easy to cook it in. So I'm going to start off by putting a little bit of that delicious tomatoey sauce on the base, and then from there I'm going to layer it over with these lasagna sheets, and then I'm going to follow along with that with a little bit of this cheesy sauce. Now for me personally, I find a little bit of this cheesy sauce is enough, and it will kind of, as it cooks, spread over, so don't worry about it being perfect. You could grate a little bit of extra cheese if you wanted to, especially some parmesan if you want to spice up this flavour a little bit. But I find there's plenty of flavour throughout, so it's fine. So I just really repeat this process until I get to just below the top. You don't want to overflowing while it cooks. And you end on that cheese layer, and then on the top, that's when I like to add a little bit of grated cheese, some parmesan on the top for, again, some extra, like a little bit of flavour. I'm just using a 4 cheese mix, just from the supermarket, pre-shredded. Do whatever suits you. And And that's about it. And I'm going to cook this now in the oven. I'm turning it up to 180 degrees Celsius. I just want to get a nice cook through and a nice brown top for the cheese. I mean, everyone knows what lasagna should look like on the top. But I'm going to cook this for about 25 minutes. And as I said, just until it's nice on the top, and I'll bring you back then, and it should be delicious. So I've pulled this delicious lasagna out of the oven. It looks amazing. I can't wait to taste it. Before then, I'm just gonna cut up some herbs, sprinkle them across the top. You can use whatever you want, some basil, some parsley, whatever you have around, or nothing, just dive in and go for it. But I'm just gonna let it sit for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna cut into it. Oh, look at those amazing layers. It looks so good, and I'm so excited to try it. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I hope you do try this out yourself. You could use any kind of meat, it doesn't have to be lamb. As I said earlier, you could use mincemeat. Just cook it for about 30 minutes, or saute it for about 30 minutes instead of the extra time. And yeah, I hope you guys really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching, and if you like this, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.